Judd Trump's clearly played some of the best shots of 2021, but this isn't all about extreme exhibition shots. The pressure a player's under can make a big difference to how we feel about it, so I've put together a list of what I believe to be the best 20 shots of 2021. These shots may be really unusual, played under immense pressure, or just plain good. But whatever the shot, I'm going to be trying to recreate it. Nearly. As usual, I'm going to be looking to recreate these shots as accurately as possible in the fewest possible attempts. But we're going to begin with this really impressive looking swerve from Jimmy Robertson. Not only is this a really good looking shot, it was crucial in that part of the match against Judd Trump, as he needed to make the clearance to level the match out at 3-all. This one's going to be a little bit easier for me to play because the cloth on my table is thicker. Looking back on that, I think the cue ball should have been a bit further in behind the green, but I over-swerved it, so I'm not too worried. At number 19, we got Kyren Wilson, screwing the cue ball back into bulk here as a shot to nothing. The good thing about playing a shot like this is you can use the cushion along with a lot of side spin to help get the cue ball back safe. Using backspin and a small amount of right hand side makes the cue ball come back to the bulk end of the table pretty easily. The only difficult part of this shot was the pot, so I was pretty happy to get it after just 3 attempts. Mark Williams is next, potting the red off the black to win the frame. This was a really inventive, clever shot, and probably wouldn't be on the list if it wasn't a frame winner. The commentators weren't 100% sure on whether or not he actually attempted this shot because the shot itself is so difficult. You have to make the red contact a very precise part of the black if you want it to come off, but having tried this a few times now, I know it's not quite as hard as you'd expect it to be, as the red's always going to go somewhere near the pocket if you hit the right half of the black, and the white's always going to go safe. This one's further down the list than you might expect because you're really just aiming to hit the black on the right side and hoping for the best. With one of the best shots on the World Championships, next we got Ronnie O'Sullivan, digging the cue ball out of the jaws of the pocket to pot the red from a really narrow angle into the middle pocket and screw the cue ball back onto the black. I know most players wouldn't have even attempted this shot and would have just played safe because you have to be so accurate and you're just as likely to hit the far jaw and leave the red on. Considering how difficult this shot was, I was really happy to get it after just 4 attempts. World champion Mark Selby takes the number 16 spot here with this really impressive shot to nothing where he delays the reaction on the cue ball to screw back around the blue. Because the red is so far down the table and the red is so close to the bulk cushion, I wasn't sure on my first attempt if I was going to be able to screw back far enough. But I was quickly able to see that this wasn't going to be a problem. The only real problem was the pot, and that was made worse on my 3rd attempt when I scattered all the reds everywhere and it took forever to put them back. So I was really relieved to get it on my next attempt, especially as I made the cue ball arc around the blue. It's vital that the cue ball was bouncing a little bit there to make it arc around the blue instead of just screwing back straight into it. Taking the number 15 spot here is John Higgins. He plays the cue ball around 3 cushions perfectly here to nudge the red on into the middle pocket. John played a lot of good positional shots this year, but I definitely think this was the best of them. I played this not too long ago for our Northern Ireland recreation, so I had a good idea on what I needed to do. So to start off with, I was fairly close. It was all about getting the right amount of backspin and left-hand side, and I kept slightly overdoing it on my first 3 attempts. I needed to just back it off slightly if I wanted to cannon the red. My 4th attempt was looking good and cannoned the red on. It didn't cannon it onto the right pocket, but I was happy enough with this unmissable red. Jimmy White takes the next place on this list with this really impressive snooker escape. He has to swerve onto exactly the right place on the cushion and get the speed right to nestle gently on the pack as to not leave Stuart Bingham a chance. The cue ball is actually touching the yellow here, and you have to swerve quite a long way to hit the right point on the cushion. I kept slightly going wide and narrow on my first 2 attempts, and I was really struggling to get the speed of the shot right. The problem is, when you're striking the cue ball down into the table this much, it's very difficult to judge its speed. This made me think that maybe I should have put this higher up on the list, but you should see some of the shots we have to come. Eventually I got a little bit lucky. I overhit it but still buried it in the red, so I was happy enough.
Before the next shot, we're just going to find Perry from the Spanish island of Mallorca. There we go.
13th place goes to Mark Selby once again. Shaun Murphy thought he had him completely safe in the World Championship final, but once again Mark Selby finds a way to dig his way out of trouble, not only podding the red but getting in perfect position. This one's only probably so far down the list because Mark didn't end up winning the frame. But it does show why he was so dominant in that final. I couldn't get anywhere near this one until my 4th attempt, when for some reason it all went perfectly. During the Masters early on in the year, Shaun Murphy was having a really tightly fought safety battle with Mark Williams, when Shaun accidentally potted the pink while trying to play safe. This left him this really tough black. He didn't know what else to do, so he took it on and knocked it straight in the centre of the pocket. This is only on the list really for being a crazy shot that nobody thought Shaun would even attempt, let alone get. Podding this shot from tight on the bolt cushion is about as difficult as it gets. I thought I was unlucky on my 2nd attempt because I got really close to it, though I was still pretty pleased to get it within 4 because this could have taken a lot longer. Number 11 is a pressure shot for Ronnie O'Sullivan against Jordan Brown in the final of the Welsh Open. Looking to level the game up at 8-all, Ronnie was forced into taking on this long blue and knocked it right in the middle of the pocket, forcing a decider. Even though Ronnie didn't win the final, this was a brilliant pressure pot, and I was really happy to also get it after just 1 attempt. Into the top 10 now, where the shots really start to get tough to recreate, and that begins with Jack Lisowski with a narrow angle pot that he manages to screw back to a bolt colour. Unlike the Kyren Wilson shot I played earlier, you can't really use the side cushion, and you have to play it entirely with backspin, which makes the shot a lot harder. And the red's a little bit further away, so you have to screw back a little bit further. I wasn't having much of a problem with that, but it was making the pot a lot more missable, and I was struggling to get anywhere near it. I think I set it up with a bit too much angle, but it didn't really matter too much. I was just surprised to see it go in on my 6th attempt. At 9, we've got this really impressive pack split from Ronnie O'Sullivan. He plays this with a lot of backspin and right-hand side to generate the angle around 2 cushions to open the reds and finish perfectly in position. The right-hand side helps it spin into the pack quicker. On my first attempt, I managed to hit the pack of reds, and I didn't think I played it that well until I looked back at it and I saw it was fairly good, and I opened the pack about as much as Ronnie did. Yang Bingtao is next with probably the best snooker escape of the year, playing the cue ball around 3 cushions perfectly to hit the red and leave it completely safe. He couldn't hit down the table, so he had to play this shot with a lot of left-hand side to make the angle around 3 cushions to head back in a straight line for the red. Even though this shot is really difficult, I managed to get it on my first attempt, but there's a good reason for this. Doing this with snooker escapes is a little bit easier because you can just see what the player did and try to copy them. In 7 we got Ronnie O'Sullivan once again, this time with a really fascinating shot where he screws the cue ball off the middle jaw to finish in position on a red. I don't think there was any other way to get in position on this shot. You need to have insanely good control of the cue ball to know that you're going to be able to make it backspin onto exactly the right place of the jaw. So obviously this one was going to take me a few attempts. I could easily screw back far enough, it was just all about getting the cue ball in the right place, which is difficult when you have to generate that amount of backspin. So that being said, I was pretty happy to get it after just 5 attempts. I even thought I overhit it slightly.
The last 6 shots are all really difficult, so we're just going to take a break to find Waldy, who's in Amman, Jordan. Just there. If I can get it in there.
Number 6 comes from the English Open and is probably the best safety shot of the year from Fraser Patrick. Bridging over the top of the brown here, he manages to play the cue ball thin off the red and get the cue ball back in behind the brown. This is a really difficult shot. Bridging over the brown like this is even pretty difficult to even hit the red thin. If you'd seen my English Open recreation video, you'd know the only reason I actually got this is I hit it way too hard but was lucky enough to come up in exactly the right place behind the brown. On my 4th attempt I didn't get behind the brown and ended up behind the green. I actually tried this 30 more times but didn't improve on this, so we'll have to stick with this one. Number 5 is this really impressive exhibition shot from who else but Judd Trump during the Northern Ireland Open. He plays the cue ball around 7 cushions here to finish in perfect position dead straight on the black. Again, being another shot I played fairly recently, I knew exactly what I needed to do, it was just all going to be about potting the pink. So when I did that on my 2nd attempt, it was unsurprising I got the cue ball going in the right direction. The only trouble was I still wasn't able to get out in the right place and kept going a little bit too close. The TV tables just seem to slide a bit more off the cushions, but that's not bad if I can pot this. And I can, so that will have to do. Number 4 is Lee Hang, playing a plant into a really tight angle into the middle pocket. There's more than 1.5 foot between these two reds here, and he manages to not only pot it, but get the cue ball perfectly in position on the black. And he then goes on to win the frame from this. The fact that you're playing this into a really narrow angle in the middle pocket makes the red in itself difficult enough to pot. The fact that there's 1.5 foot between both reds here to play a plant makes it nearly impossible. As it was dead straight, I was just trying to pot the first red and hope for the best. Eventually I kept getting closer and closer, and I knew it was only so long before one would go in. So into the top 3, and the 3rd best shot of the year goes to Ronnie O'Sullivan with this black from the UK Championships against Mark King. Not only does he pot the black, but he manages to spin the cue ball around 5 cushions, narrowly avoiding the brown and the blue, and gets perfectly in position on the red. This is probably one of the best positional shots you'll see. And that's not forgetting the pot. Putting a huge amount of left hand side, which you need to get in position on the red, makes the pot really difficult. And it took me a good few tries before I could even get close. Again, this is another shot I played not too long ago, so I knew roughly where I had to hit the cue ball and what spin it needed in order to get close. I nearly got it on my 5th attempt, but just nicked the blue, so it was just a case of finding the line. On my 6th attempt, I more or less got the shot absolutely spot on, but just left it a bit short, and I couldn't quite pot the red from here, which was a lot harder than it looked from this angle, so I had to keep trying. It's incredibly difficult, this shot, because there's such a narrow margin between the brown and the blue. Eventually I got right in between the two and ended up in position on the red. A little bit too hard, but definitely in position. But taking the number 2 spot is an even more impressive positional shot, I would argue, from Judd Trump. It's a very similar shot to the last one, but this time he plays it with check side to make the cue ball go back towards the red instead of going around the table like we were doing with the Ronnie shot. The fact that I played this shot straight after I was attempting the Ronnie shot made it a lot easier because I'd already learnt the angle, or roughly the same angle. But what I didn't expect is to play this shot absolutely perfectly on my 3rd attempt. I even played it a little bit better than Judd and got the red right over the pocket. But the best shot of the year inevitably goes to Judd Trump and the green from the German Masters. Not only is this a brilliant, flashy looking shot, but it completely turned the match around for Judd. He would have been 5-2 behind at the end of this frame against Barry Hawkins, who only needed one more frame to win the match, and Judd was able to overhaul that. The problem is, this is an immensely difficult shot to get right. You have to bounce the cue ball into the table with a lot of topspin, and even when you do pot it, it's not guaranteed it's going to stop. If it's not bouncing enough, then all the topspin will take effect straight away, increasing the speed into the cushion and won't slow it down. If you bounce it too much, you'll jump the balls off the table. I even lost the green for quite a while here. To get this to work, you need to bounce the cue ball towards the cushion and only get the topspin to take effect as it comes back down the table. I nearly took out the Christmas tree several times while playing this shot and didn't think I was ever going to be able to get it again.
Well, I'll have to take that.
I thought that was going to stop a little bit sooner than that, like around here somewhere, but we're going to have to settle with that because otherwise I'm going to destroy the green completely. So there we go, what I believe to be the best 20 shots of the year. And that's the last video we're ever making on this channel in 2021. We'll be back next year, but in between time, why not have a look at these 2 videos, like shots I recreated earlier in the year. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.